Every single World Cup, multiple national teams have big-time snubs. You know, players that many expected to be there or should have been there, but the coaches didn't call them up. I mean, back in 2014, Jurgen Klinsmann left Lyndon Donovan out of the roster. He also left Brek Shea out of the roster for the US men's national team in the 2014 World Cup. And even if you go back to the 2022 World Cup, one could argue that Ricardo Pepi was a snub. Not a big-time snub, but he probably should have been there ahead of Jesus Ferreira or Haji Wright. So if the 2026 World Cup around the corner, who are the big American names that could be left out of the US men's national team roster by Mauricio Pochettino? Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today I want to go through 6 US men's national team players that are kind of big names that could miss out on the 2026 World Cup. Now, understand, my prediction is based on a coaching decision. The coach might choose to not have them there, okay? I'm not here to try to predict injuries, right? I don't want to do that. And I also can't really predict if a player, you know, I don't know, his name like pops up on that list of people that visited the Forbidden Island. I can't predict those things. And this is also being recorded February 20th, so if anyone gets injured or something happens between now and the time that this video is released, I could not know, I wouldn't know. Alright, now make sure to drop a like in this video if you haven't already, and let me know in the comment section down below. Give me like 3 or 4 US men's national team players that you think will be left out of the 2026 World Cup roster. Okay, let's begin with player number 1. Player number 1 that I think could be left out of the 2026 World Cup roster is the same one that I mentioned earlier in the video that missed out on the 2022 World Cup, and that is Ricardo Pepi. And you may be saying, Filippo, you said you were not going to try to predict injuries, and you're saying Pepi won't be there because he's injured. That's not true. He's actually coming back from injury right now as I'm recording this video, and I don't think injuries will be a problem. I actually think there's a realistic chance that Pepi is left out simply because Pochettino thought he had better options. Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the injury. He's coming back from a broken arm. He'll be fit. He'll be fine. PSV will also want to play him because they want to sell him this summer. So why exactly do I think that he's at risk of missing the World Cup? So listen, there are 4 players competing for the 3 spots as a center forward in the roster. Balogun is a lock and a starter. So it's actually 3 guys fighting for 2 spots. And they are Haji Wright, Ricardo Pepi, and Agyemang. So here's the thing. Haji seems to be the number 2 for Pochettino right now. In the last 2 camps, he outplayed Pepi, and he also, got more minutes than Ricardo Pepi. So that essentially leaves Ricardo Pepi and Agyemang fighting for the last spot. And you know what? You may be thinking, Pepi versus Agyemang? It's a pretty easy choice. It's Ricardo Pepi. And I agree with you. I think you're right. But it doesn't mean Mauricio Pochettino agrees with me or with you. Because you see, while Pepi was injured, Agyemang was scoring headers in the English Championship, right? Or the EFL Championship. And I think in Pochettino's mind, it's 50-50. He also has this weird love for Agyemang that we saw in 2025. He might also think that Agyemang is a legitimate aerial threat, which is a different style of center forward compared to Balogun and Haji Wright. Now listen, when push comes to shove, I think if healthy, Pepi will go. But he is one of the US men's national team players that could be snubbed in the 2026 World Cup, because I could see a scenario where, I don't know, Pochettino calls up Agyemang in March, Agyemang doesn't look terrible, and then he takes Ricardo Pepi's spot, which would be insane, right? To think that Pepi was a snub in 2022, and then now he'll be a snub in 2026 when he's on the verge right now. He might get a move to Fulham in the Premier League very soon for 30-40 million euros. We'll see. The March camp is coming up, and I think Ricardo Pepi could miss out on the World Cup because right now Balogun and Haji are the front runners. They will make it. And I actually think in Pochettino's mind, Agyemang might be number 3. Player number 2 is Johnny Cardoso from Atletico Madrid. And this is an interesting one because for Johnny, if you go only based on talent, he is 100% a roster lock. He's even fighting for a starting spot if we only go based on talent. But the problem is, very often Johnny Cardoso is injured when we have a US men's national team camp. He's not available. And the other problem is that when he is available, his performances have been mediocre to bad. Now, the problem is, how do you leave out a player this talented, right, from the US men's national team roster? This guy is a very good La Liga player. He's an Atletico Madrid player. He's a starter for Atletico Madrid. And I want to say this. I believe Johnny has one more window to convince Pochettino that he can, in fact, contribute to the US men's national team. Pochettino should call him up in March and give him a shot against Belgium and Portugal, or at least one of them. And if Johnny has a decent performance, I think he will make it to the World Cup roster. Now, if Pochettino does not bring Johnny to the March camp, that means Johnny is out. He's done. He will not be in the World Cup roster, which very likely means that Roldan, Sebastian Berhalter will be there, maybe Aiden Morris, players that are worse than Johnny Cardoso. But for the US national team, it seems like Pochettino likes them better. Okay, so my prediction here is that Johnny will be in the March camp. Now, as for the World Cup, to me, it's open. It's going to depend a lot on how Johnny does in March. I don't think Pochettino's going to leave him out. He's too good, too talented to just give up on him. I think he'll bring him in at March, right, where we play Belgium and Portugal. He's going to see how Johnny does. And based on that, we'll know whether or not he's going to be in the 2026 World Cup. But it's kind of crazy that the US men's national team might leave out an Atletico Madrid midfielder, a starter for Atletico Madrid, out of their roster. It is kind of crazy because Atletico Madrid themselves is a better team than the US national team. But yeah, Johnny is at risk of not being in the World Cup roster. Now, before we continue, a quick word from the sponsor of this video, Prize Picks. We'll be back very soon. Right now, what you should do is not go anywhere, drop a like, and put that random comment in the comment section to rig the YouTube algorithm. We'll be back very soon with player number 3. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups once you play your first $5. That is right. Prize Picks is giving you $50 in lineups once you play your first $5. And if you're into basketball, every dunk, every dime, and every board will become much more exciting. So don't miss out on that. Personally, I like playing fantasy sports for basketball and soccer. Those are two sports I very much enjoy watching, and this adds an extra excitement to the game. When I do play fantasy sports or have my own lineups, I get to hate watch players or root for players. Obviously, hate watching is much more fun, but do whatever you want. And Prize Picks is pretty easy to play. You choose 2 to 6 player projections for any sports. You then submit the lineup and check the entry fee and the payout. The payout is very easy, by the way. You then get matched into a group where you get real money by topping that group or getting your picks right to win the minimum guarantee. You can also play Prize Picks for free because they do have a free-to-play jackpot, which you can play, as I said, for free. And Prize Picks is available in all 50 states. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. Once again, that is the promo code CLNS at the Prize Picks app. The link is in the description. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, we're back. Hopefully you didn't go anywhere, and hopefully you have already obliterated the like button. Player number 3 is Yunus Musah from Atalanta in Italy. And this is a weird one, not right now. Like, anyone that's following the US men's national team right now agrees with me that Yunus Musah very likely won't be in the World Cup roster. But listen, if you told me that 4 years ago, I would call you crazy. He was one of the best for the US national team in the 2022 World Cup when he was only 20. He was a locked-in starter for most of the first cycle of Greg Berhalter, and he was expected to be a key player in 2026. He did leave Valencia and get a big move to Milan. That didn't go well. Then now he's on a loan to Atalanta, which is not going well. And, you know, Musah, ever since he rejected a USMNT summer call-up to play the Gold Cup, he has not been called up by Mauricio Pochettino for the other 3 camps that we had in 2025. So Pochettino decided to not call up Musah in the last 3 call-ups that he had. Musah is also not playing well in Europe right now for Atalanta. He's on the bench, sometimes he gets minutes, he has some flashy moments, but he hasn't been great. It also feels like he has stagnated in terms of his talent or his level, right? He almost feels like it's the same Musah that he was 3 years ago, or maybe even worse. So, out of all the players that I mentioned, like Pepi, Johnny Cardoso so far, Yunus Musah is the most likely one to be left out of the 2026 World Cup roster. I would say Pepi is like 60-40 in favor of Ricardo Pepi. Johnny Cardoso is 50-50, while Yunus Musah, it's probably like a 90% chance that he'll be left out. Player number 4. Now, bear with me. This one is a bit more complicated to explain because this is a player that is a Pochettino favorite. However, at the same time, I don't think he should be there just because of his level. I think there are better players. And that is Diego Luna from Real Salt Lake. And let me explain, because you're going to say, well, he's a Pochettino favorite, so he's going to be there. Tactical manager. It doesn't really matter what you think. What matters is what Pochettino thinks. But let me explain. I think Diego Luna could be left out. So with Pochettino's 3-4-2-1 formation, we essentially have double 10s and wingbacks that provide width. And technically that would help Luna, right? Because he's more of a 10 than a winger. Now, based on previous rosters, Pochettino will very likely bring somewhere between 4 to 6 players that can play in that double 10. And here are the options. Christian Pulisic, and he's a lock. Weston McKennie, he's a lock. And yes, he has played McKennie in the double 10, and that's where Weston McKennie has played many games for Juventus so far. So McKennie is also a lock right there. And Malik Tillman is also a lock. So we have 2 to 3 spots left between Brenden Aaronson, Gio Reyna, Alejandro Zendejas, and Diego Luna. And let me ask you this, besides doing some cool step overs and scoring a goal against a bunch of semi-pro Guatemalan players in the Gold Cup or playing with a broken nose, what has Diego Luna done for the national team besides that? Maybe had one good performance here and there? So honestly, he could be left out, right? If Pochettino goes with like 4 to 5 players that can play that position, I think Brenden Aaronson right now is pretty close to being a lock, which means Diego Luna would be fighting for a spot with Zendejas, that honestly Pochettino very much likes Zendejas in that camp where he played, I believe, against South Korea and Japan. And Gio Reyna, that we're going to talk about him very soon, he's more talented than Diego Luna, but there's other issues with Gio. So I think it can happen. Diego Luna could miss out on the 2026 World Cup. I would say this, the odds of him being there, Diego Luna, they are higher than Johnny Cardoso. I would say it's something like Ricardo Pepi. It's like 60-40 in favor of Diego Luna going. Player number 5, this is going to be a quick one. It's Joe Scally from Borussia Mönchengladbach, also known as Borussia not Dortmund. So Joe Scally is not being called in very often by Pochettino. And when he was finally called up, we're like, oh, Joe Scally can now show him what he can do. Because I think Joe Scally is a good player. He didn't play well. He didn't play well for the U.S. men's national team when he got a shot. He got completely outplayed by Alex Freeman, a player that Pochettino clearly favors regardless of that performance. So I don't think Joe Scally will make the roster, right? Unless there are injuries, because Joe Scally can play, let's put it this way, okay? He could play as a right center back in a back three. But right now, all the center backs that Pochettino likes are ahead of him, right? Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, even Miles Robinson, they're all ahead of Joe Scally. Alex Freeman can play as a right center back in a back three, and he will also be ahead of Joe Scally. Now, as a wing back, on the left, it's A-Rob and Arfston, right, from the Columbus Crew. On the right, it's Serginho Dest and very likely Tim Weah. And if it's not Tim Weah, you also have Alex Freeman. So unless we have injuries on the wingback position, Joe Scally will 100% not make it to the 2026 World Cup roster. Which sucks, because I think Scally is a reliable player that can help the U.S. national team. He was actually fine for the United States in the 2024 Copa America when everyone besides Balogun was crap. Joe Scally was fine. But I honestly don't think he's going to be in the 2026 World Cup roster, despite being a regular Bundesliga starter for like 4 seasons already. Last but not least, we have player number 6, and this is an obvious one. It's Gio Reyna, the teammate of Joe Scally at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Now, as I said earlier in the video, I'm not here to predict injuries, but it's kind of hard to not predict injuries when it comes to Gio Reyna. He's barely playing for Gladbach, and then he got injured, and he's been out for 3 to 4 weeks at the time of this recording. He'll likely not be in the March camp if he's not fully fit. And that will open the door for Brenden Aaronson to play well. Alejandro Zendejas, Diego Luna, right? Tillman, McKennie, Pulisic. And there are a lot of players at Gio Reyna's position. This guy's not playing for his club. He's actually injured right now. And we do have a lot of options there, and I don't know how many Mauricio Pochettino will bring. Now, would I bring Gio to the World Cup? If he is healthy, if he is fit, yes, I would bring him. Because he could give you a good 15-20 minutes off the bench. Much better than Aronson, better than Luna, better than Zendeja. Especially if you're playing against a low block like Australia, possibly Paraguay as well. Do I think Gio Reyna will make it to the World Cup? It's 100% reliant on his health. I believe that if he's playing for Gladbach, Pochettino will bring him. If he's not playing, I think Gio Reyna is going to be left out. And right now, again, I don't want to predict injuries, but right now, I don't think Gio Reyna will be in the 2026 World Cup. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Some of you might be wondering, what about Noah Kai Banks? Well, first and foremost, he's been called in once by Pochettino and never really played. Will he be a snub if he's not called in? Yes. But I think Noah Kai Banks will make the roster. I think he's going to be there in March. He'll do well, and he's going to be in the World Cup roster. That's why I didn't include Noah Kai Banks. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know who you think will be snubbed in the 2026 World Cup for the United States. And don't forget to drop a like. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.